The Winglung 2 simply exhausts defenses. It can hover over a point for days until those below lose their nerve or run out of fuel. This 4-ton machine turns a patrol sector into a shooting gallery. From an altitude of 9 kilometers, the drone sees the heat signatures of engines through camouflage and clouds, operating well out of reach of man-portable air defense systems. Its mission is not a flashy raid, but a methodical sweep. 12 missiles on its hardpoints allow it to destroy every single unit of equipment in its field of view, one by one. For any target on the ground, this becomes a wait for a strike that will land the exact moment an operator presses a button 3,000 kilometers away. This entire process only became possible after the Chinese scrapped the old motor and installed a unit with power comparable to that of light aircraft engines. To stop the drone from being just a flying camera and start carrying an anti-tank arsenal, designers had to essentially build a completely different aircraft around the new engine. VIC engineers understood that with an old piston engine, the Winglung 2 would never catch up to its Western competitors. They integrated a powerful 600 horsepower turboprop engine into the airframe, which instantly raised the maximum takeoff weight to 4.2 tons. This gave the aircraft the ability not just to hang in the sky, but to maneuver actively at altitudes of up to 9,000 meters, where thin air makes conventional engines useless. It is no longer a fragile glider, but a high-altitude heavyweight capable of delivering half a ton of missile weaponry to any point thousands of kilometers from the airfield. But to prevent this immense weight from breaking the structure during its first sharp turn, engineers had to completely abandon traditional aviation aluminum. With a wingspan of 20 meters, this giant weighs less than an empty civilian pickup truck, and that is the only reason it can stay airborne for days on end. To ensure the airframe doesn't fold under the weight of fuel and 12 missiles, the Chinese switched entirely to composites and carbon fiber. In the Chengdu factories, parts aren't riveted by hand. They are layered by industrial robots, providing perfect precision and structural rigidity. This approach made the fuselage extremely light and strong at the same time. The drone withstands G-loads during maneuvers without wasting extra fuel carrying its own iron. But this lightweight body is merely a shell for a system capable of distinguishing a running tank engine from an ordinary campfire from the height of the stratosphere. The Winglung 2 doesn't choose a priority target. Its ammunition capacity is enough to simply destroy everything that moves within a 10-kilometer radius in succession. 6 hardpoints and dual launchers allow this drone to carry 12 Blue Arrow 7 guided missiles. While conventional UAVs can serve every shot, this aircraft operates on redundancy. It can saturate a sector with fire, suppressing the will to resist before the first target even realizes where the strike came from. The entire arsenal is linked to a digital control bus, allowing the operator to combine fragmentation bombs and anti-tank missiles during a single mission. However, all this firepower becomes useless cargo if the sensors cannot burn through the Earth's thermal background through smoke or thick fog. At such an altitude, visual camouflage does not work. The drone's sensors do not see the paint on the armor, but the heat trail that equipment leaves on the ground even an hour after stopping. A gyro-stabilized station with a high-resolution thermal imager and a laser rangefinder designator is mounted under the Winglung 2's nose. The system operates in passive mode. It emits nothing, simply collecting photons in the infrared and visible ranges, stitching through smoke screens and fog. This allows the operator to see details like open hatches or running generators from a distance, where the drone itself cannot even be heard. But the image on the monitor is only half the battle. To ensure the data isn't intercepted, engineers had to create an invisible umbrella of satellite communication over the aircraft. You cannot outweight this drone behind the horizon. As long as it is within satellite range, the operator can pull the trigger from another continent. Unlike cheap UAVs that operate via direct radio link, the Winglung 2 is equipped with a powerful satellite data transmission terminal in the fairing above its head. This collapses the distance between the pilot and the target. Control is handled via encrypted channels that are virtually impossible to jam with standard EW, electronic warfare tools on the front line. As a result, the drone can travel 2,000 kilometers from its base while the operator sits calmly in an air-conditioned bunker. seeing the image in real time with minimal latency. But such freedom of movement requires a colossal fuel supply, which must be stored somewhere within this plastic airframe. The Wing Lung 2 is capable of staying in the air for 32 consecutive hours, more than a full day of continuous pressure on a target that can neither move nor relax. Almost all the internal space of the 11-meter fuselage and wings is taken up by integrated fuel tanks. Thanks to the low consumption of the turboprop engine and the light weight of the airframe, the aircraft uses kerosene extremely economically, allowing it to cover vast distances or loiter in a standby zone for hours. For those below, this means psychological attrition. An attack could happen at any moment, day, night, or at dawn the next day, when the vigilance of the shift is at zero. However, record endurance becomes a problem when it comes to takeoff and landing. The slightest error in automation could turn this fuel depot into a giant torch right on the runway. While the operator drinks coffee at headquarters, the drone calculates its own glide slope and counters crosswind gusts, eliminating the human factor during the most dangerous moments of the mission. The Wing Lung 2 is equipped with a fully automatic takeoff and landing system, ATOL. This is critical for a 4-ton machine. The electronics react to changes in pressure and wind speed faster than any pilot, keeping the heavy aircraft on the narrow strip. Automation not only reduces the load on the crew, but also allows the drone to be used in difficult weather conditions, when manual control would turn into a lottery. However, all this digital hardware requires colossal computing power, which must be cooled at an altitude where the outside temperature drops to -50 degrees Celsius. The drone's best defense is not the thickness of its armor, but the thin air at 9 kilometers altitude, where it becomes practically unreachable for most field air defense systems. At its operational ceilings, the Wing Lung 2 is outside the effective range of man-portable air defense systems, manpads, and rapid-fire cannons. To shoot down such a target, the enemy must deploy heavy air defense systems, which themselves instantly become priority targets for the drone's sensors. Additionally, the aircraft is equipped with a radar warning receiver, RWR. As soon as an enemy radar locks onto the drone, the electronics signal the operator and can automatically activate the release of heat flares or begin an evasive maneuver. But even if the connection is completely severed by a powerful EW unit, the drone won't fall like a stone. It will activate a protocol embedded in its brain like a self-preservation instinct. If the satellite link is broken, the drone won't turn into an unguided piece of composite. It will switch to survival autopilot mode, returning home using inertial system coordinates. A rigid algorithm for actions in the event of a total loss of control or powerful EW suppression is hard-coded into the Wing Lung 2's onboard computer. The system switches to internal navigational gyroscopes that do not depend on GPS and begins an autonomous flight back to the starting point. This deprives the enemy of the opportunity to hijack the drone or simply wait for it to run out of fuel in a jamming zone. The aircraft will methodically exit the suppression zone and restore communication with its base. Such reliability allowed China to transform this project from an experimental prototype into a major export commodity, reshaping the arms market in the Middle East. Wing Lung 2 captured the market not because it is the best, but because it offers the capabilities of the American Reaper at a price point that makes the loss of a drone acceptable. China found the perfect balance. While Western nations impose dozens of restrictions on the export of strike UAVs, Beijing sells Wing Lung 2s by the dozen to the UAE, Egypt, Nigeria, and Pakistan. In real combat operations, from Libya to Yemen, this aircraft has proven that quantity is often more important than technological redundancy. The ability to deploy an entire squadron for the price of a single heavy fighter jet has allowed countries with modest budgets to acquire aviation that operates 24/7. A key link in the kill chain. However, mass production created a new problem: how to distinguish this drone from dozens of others in a saturated sky to avoid friendly fire. Wing Lung 2 is not a lone hunter, but the eyes of the entire army group, capable of transmitting target coordinates to artillery the very second they appear in the lens. The drone is deeply integrated into modern battle management systems. It doesn't just stream video, It generates a ready-to-use digital target grid that is visible to MLRS, multiple launch rocket system crews, and heavy howitzer batteries on their tablets. Thanks to secure data exchange protocols, the aircraft operates within a unified information field, where the detection of an object by a drone automatically triggers its destruction by the nearest available means. This transforms the UAV from a flying gun into a key link in the reconnaissance strike loop, reducing the time from detection to impact to just a few minutes. The future, from drone to unmanned fighter. Yet even with all this technology, the project's future depends not on new processors, but on the airframe's ability to carry even heavier weapons currently being developed in laboratories. Winglung 2 is already hitting the ceiling of its capabilities, which is why a version 3 is being developed on its base, designed to carry 1.5 times more weaponry over double the distance. Chinese engineers are not resting on their laurels. The next iteration of the drone will feature an even more powerful propulsion system and an increased wingspan. This will allow for more than just a larger ammunition load. It will enable the integration of electronic warfare, EW suites, and even air-to-air missiles for self-defense against other drones. Essentially, the platform is evolving into a full-fledged unmanned multi-role fighter capable of performing tasks that previously required manned aircraft and enormous expenditures. Ultimately, the Winglung 2 is merely an intermediate link in a global plan where the skies above the battlefield will be completely cleared of humans.